Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your #1 source for Native American television news, Native News Today. I'm your host, Jason Salzman, back in the Mvskoke Media Studios as we get ready for this week's episode. Lots of things to get to this week. We're going to take you back to the Mvskoke Adolwa Festival a couple weeks ago from Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America, where they held the Adolwa Festival at the National Museum of the American Indian. Big times there for Mvskoke Creek Nation. Big contingency on hand from the tribe, lots of people, and we just sort of got a set of stories from there. You know, we got last week we showed you the artist. This week we'll get some perspective from our royalty that made the trip. They are the ambassadors of this tribe, so consequently they go and go on a lot of goodwill trips, and this is one of them, and we're going to get their take from the festival as well. Also, we sit down with re-elected councilman Mr. Mark Randolph, and Mr. Randolph elected to another term. Wanted to talk with him about some of his some of the vision he has for what he'd like to get accomplished in these next few years, as well as the structure and working within the structure of tribal government as well. So great interview with Mark Randolph. We're going to have that for you also. A lot of things going on around here, a lot of activities going on around. It's Christmas time, so definitely want to remind you to stay with Native News Today, stay with Mvskoke Media as we get into the holiday season. Lots is going to be going on. It's just really exciting time of year around here, and we're going to have a special, really neat Christmas episode for you all as well too here in a couple weekends. So very excited about that here at Native News Today. But all of that and more coming your way here on the episode today. We're going to take our first break. Come right back with Native News Today. And welcome back to the program as we get started with this week's features. And as I said in the opener, big times happening a couple weeks ago there in Washington, D.C. at the National Museum of the American Indian. As for the second time, the Mvskoke Creek Nation was a special guest of the museum for the entirety of the end of the week there for the Mvskoke Adolwa Festival. Basically all things Mvskoke, Adolwa literally in our language meaning the people. And so it's a wonderful thing to be able to go up there, spotlight the culture of the nation, spotlight some of the departments of the government of the nation, and spotlight some of the people. There were so many dancers that went up, artists, all kinds of things, singers, just showcasing a little bit of all things Mvskoke for the National Museum of the American Indian. And as our series continued with this Adolwa Festival, we wanted to highlight the Mvskoke Creek Nation royalty making the trip.
So we're here in Washington, D.C. for Mvskoke Adolwa. Super excited to be able to show the people in D.C. and surrounding areas who we are as people, because I think we take for granted sometimes being in Oklahoma, like people know Creek people, so it's kind of like, well, we don't necessarily have to have the opportunity to educate as much. When we get out here, it's like nobody knows who we are, nobody knows about our tribe, so it's so awesome to be able to meet these new people and to just let them know who we are as Mvskoke people, and that's exactly what this is all about, so we're super excited for that. I I hope I just continue to bring away what I have been anytime I've gone somewhere, is just our strength, our resilience as Mvskoke people. You know, we've come a long way from the beginning to now. So I just hope I continue to just take away that, like I said, that strength of who we are and being able to teach that to people.
I'm really excited to show people who aren't from Oklahoma more about our culture, and to show them that us Native Americans are still here, and that we're still surviving and striving for excellence. Just to show them that we are continuing to learn about our culture, and we're continuing to pass that down to future generations. It's really fun talking to the little children because they're really excited to talk to a princess, but I really like teaching them about my culture and telling them how I won the title, and telling them that this is not just for me to show off the crown, but it's for me to show off our culture and to show how amazing Mvskoke people are. Well, I came here to show off our culture, so I hope to take back that it's not only a few of us teaching our culture, but there's like a big community of Mvskoke people trying to preserve our culture, trying to pass it down. So I hope to take back that I'm not alone in preserving our culture, but that I have a support system if I need help doing that.
Great big event there, the Mvskoke Adolwa Festival at the National Museum of the American Indian. A wonderful thing, and we were so glad to be able to send a couple of reporters to bring back some great footage from that and share it with the audience here. Moving right along, as we said earlier in the opener as well, wanted to get some of the councilmen, the council members, the new ones that are coming in, as well as those that won their seat that were incumbents, and one such person is Mark Randolph, and Mark Randolph actually didn't go to a runoff, won his outright in the primary election. So we wanted to get with him and sit him down, speak about some of his platform, some of his plans, the vision he has coming up for his term here, and what it means for him, his district, the people he represents, all of that. So we can't be everywhere at once. Sometimes Jared and I don't get to do things, so this was given to us by Kevin Barnett, Liz Gray. They both filed this story, shot it, and provided it to us here, and we have it for you now.
Well, I'm big on recycling. I think when we talk about recycling, one of the best ways to go green is financially. And I would like to see us recycle our money more. I've asked questions, and as far as economic development goes, I was asking about Margaritaville and how much linen, that they had to have cleaned weekly. And they were telling me they had to take 2 big trucks full of linen to Oklahoma City and back because no one in Tulsa can handle, that much linen. And I asked, I said, so how much do we spend a year just getting linen cleaned, say the sheets, the tablecloths, they have big conferences there, and there's just a lot of linens, and then their the employees, everything they wear, all these things have to be dry cleaned. And so we're spending like over $1 million a year. And so in my mind, it makes my wheels spin, and I'm thinking, why don't we create our own dry cleaning services somewhere that's locally, where we don't have to go all the way to Oklahoma City. We're spending a lot of gas. We're paying somebody, that's a lot of hours on the road back and forth. And it was a couple of times a week. I don't remember specifically, but I think that would create jobs. And whether it be within the Tulsa area, whether one of our communities pick it up, the little cards that they make, the players' cards, people, they give out so many of those daily, and I keep thinking about economic development and economic diversity, and I'm thinking, how can we create businesses where we already have the business right there and we just recycle our money? Instead of having all these outside vendors, we create businesses that match up with our other businesses, and we create jobs for our own people. And now I see, like with Oklahoma City, they have an embroidery shop, and I believe it's called Circle, what is it? Something Circle Promotions. I can't remember exactly the name, but anyways, they do embroidery, they do silk screening, they make lanyards, which, you know, our casinos give out hundreds of lanyards. They give out lots and lots of shirts, and I believe that they do a number of things, little mugs, you can get pens, you can get pencils, and so I put a plug in to the executive side and to the casinos and to our department heads, asking that we funnel business toward them. I think our last appropriation was over $200,000, and so we have invested initially in the foundation of this business for this economic development. And I believe we should be giving them as much as business as we can to develop a strong foundation. And you know, they say like in the first 2 years, a new business will either sink or swim. And so if we want them to be successful, I think we're going to have to contribute to their foundation and, you know, build it strong financially. And then like Eufaula sells water, you know, the community, all of our water should be purchased from Eufaula. And you see the other nationalities, they're doing it, the African Americans, the Asians, the Hispanics. They support each other. They keep their money within their community. They've learned to do that and recycle their money. And you see other tribal nations doing that also. And I hope that we get on board with that, and I hope that we support each other and we create economic development where we don't always have to give out our money to other vendors. That was an experience in itself. And one of the things I seen happen was Miss Barnett was reprimanded. And to me, it was kind of saying, okay, we're going to reprimand you because of these people have rights, but you have none. And I think everybody should be able to face their accusers. She was accused of certain things, and by the Constitution says we have the right to face our accusers. I don't think it should have been confidential. You know, I think it should have been out in the open. We keep asking for transparency. And I also think, you know, how can you reprimand somebody for things you've done yourself? You know, one of the things I see and that I am concerned with what's going on in the council is presently, and this is just my opinion, it's my opinion that presently there are at least 2 individuals on the National Council who have jockeyed themselves into position in hopes to, in the future, run for chief and vice chief. And I think it has disrupted some things. I see kind of an inner circle of National Council members who are privy to certain information. There's a lot of meetings that go on behind closed doors that not all the council is involved in. And I believe as a council, we need to be educated and fully informed on issues so we can make an educated decisions when it comes to us. And so what I'm seeing is kind of like this, you know, I'll call it the inner circle, have kind of merged with the executive branch, and I think it's compromised boundaries. I think it's compromised the separation of power. I think, you know, our ancestors and everybody that put together our form of government had a reason to have 3 branches, and that the executive and the legislative should balance each other out and keep each other in check. But when you merge and you start sharing duties, I think, you know, boundaries are meshed and and things are compromised. And so what I would like to see in it all is I think it's great to have a great working relationship with the executive branch, but it should be the full council. Now, if this was happening and all the information was being disseminated to the council, I'd be happy about it. But I feel like there's things that we're not included in, And it makes you wonder, because, once you start looking at running for different offices, you begin to wonder and you think, well, are we doing things for the good of the people, of the nation, or is this personal gain? And I see within our nation that a lot of things are done on a personal versus professional. I would call this place a professional working environment. This isn't a personal playground. And I believe a lot of things are handled personally. And so one of the things I aspire to look at, and I've been working on it, is that one time I had created legislation to do away with at-will termination, and it didn't make it past the BF&J committee. And so I've talked with some of our council people, and through our forums and through the recent campaign, people ask and people wanted transparency, and people were talking about wrongful termination. And I hear a lot of cases that citizens feel like they were wrongfully terminated, that it was personal versus professional. And so I want to go back and revisit this legislation, and I'd like to see everybody have due process, to have, maybe a verbal reprimand, a written reprimand, an employee assistance where you sit down with the employee, and if they're not doing their job, then you tell them, this is your job, this is how you do it, and you help them. And I think the supervisors and their supervisors should be included in this process, because everybody's got to be accountable. If employees aren't necessarily doing what they're supposed to be doing, then why isn't their directors or managers making sure they are? Because that's part of their job. And so I'd like to see accountability on all levels and documentation. These things need to be documented. We can't keep going on, well, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. I think we've got a ways to go in that area. I heard a report the other night from One Fire, and our initial investment for One Fire was $21 million, and one of the things that was dumped on them was Riverwalk. The money that we gave them was more or less seed money to start up businesses, economic diversity, and bring money into the nation. But that, Riverwalk was dumped on them, and that's when Flying T's came along, and they were kind of like our anchor, to fill these shops. And so now everything's full and everything's running, and I think I don't have a big business background, but I would say I would leave it to the people who know business really well. And if there came a time that we could make a nice profit, recover it, I'd be for it. But I'd like to hear input from citizens also. I mean, I think, you never know with business. It might keep going well, it might not. If we needed to sell it and it was the best for the nation, then I would say yes. If not, I think it's just getting off on its feet also. And I think there's the potential that it'll keep doing better. So we'll see. I'm kind of on both sides on that. I don't have I don't say yes, let's sell it, or no, let's not sell it. It's still kind of in its infancy age, and the turnaround was pretty quick. So we'll see. I think we have to look at our history and know that when we came to this new country, that there was, I think they said 44, maybe 44 tribal towns, and we all come from tribal towns. And there was no central Mvskoke Creek Nation government back then. There was representatives from each town, and we are a confederacy of people. And as far as dual enrollment goes, I think there's some kinks and there's some things, a lot of people say, well, they're double dipping, they're getting this and that. I think as Mvskoke people, we could sit down and we can talk this out. I think, like, for one thing, Coweta does, like the community in Coweta, if you come and you ask for a crisis financial assistance, you have to have a letter from our social services here at Creek Nation stating that you've been denied, you know, to make sure there's no double dipping. And I don't see why we can't have a working relationship with the tribal towns to just, you know, work closely with each other and provide as much financial assistance to our people as we can without double dipping. You know, that seems to be the big issue there. But our tribal towns, they are Mvskoke people. And I really had a hard time with it because I thought, we come from different tribal towns and we have diverse names, you know, our tribal towns, but as a confederacy and everything, and since we've been here, I would rather see us stay together than to go apart. I'd rather see us work together and flourish than to turn our backs on each other. And I appreciate the opportunity to say something. And you know, the whole ideal of our government is to represent our people. And I think, you know, I believe in quality service and quality contact, and I think we have room to improve there. And I think we've got to come up with some creative ways for economic diversity. I'd like to see us join with the Choctaws and the Chickasaws and the Cherokees. We seem to be behind, but I attribute that a lot to there's divisions that we've got to clear up. We've got to get past all the personal and really concentrate on the professional. And as far as the candidacy goes, you know, I wish everybody luck. And I would say this, though. I would say if you have to, how would you say it, trick somebody to get their votes, then you might not be a good candidate. You know, but I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to thank all three individuals there responsible for that. First and foremost, our subject, Mark Randolph, and certainly wish him well in his next term. Hopefully want to see great success for the nation. And also Liz Gray, our reporter here at Mvskoke Media, and Kevin Barnett also works with us in visual media here at Mvskoke Media. Those two putting together that interview and providing it for the show here this week. Want to thank them all involved. So our last feature of the week takes us just a little bit outside of Altmalgi, one of the great gems of Oklahoma, one of the last remaining bottomwood forests in Oklahoma, and that is the Deep Fork Wildlife Refuge. If you go out there, you can visit the headquarters, see some wildlife, hunt, fish, do all of the great things, and see some of the forest that is being protected as one of the last ones in Oklahoma. But what's neat is there's some tribal heritage out there as well. The Casita Bottoms Trail that runs along the Deep Fork Wildlife Refuge.
It's an elevated boardwalk. It's about 5 foot off the ground. It's roughly a little over 1,300 foot long. We're actually going to be adding on to it next year. So it'll be roughly almost 1,000 foot longer after that. It took us a little over a year to construct the whole thing. It's roughly just two guys working on it. It's myself and an older gentleman. And just about every day, weather permitting, we were out here drilling in for the 6x6 posts to go in, and we'd get maybe 10 to 15 foot per day. And so it took us a little over a year to get the whole thing knocked out. And then the year after that, it was started in 01, it was finished in 2002. Hardly anybody even knows it's here, even though we got some signs on the highway over there. But in 03, there's an extension that came off and it ramped down to an asphalt trail. And it just winds through the bottomland hardwoods here. The most special thing is the fact that it's in the bottomland hardwoods, and there's not many bottomland hardwoods in Oklahoma anymore. And so it's being protected. Where it's located at is in the Casita Bottoms. And it was named after the people with the last name of Casita, which is Creek Nation. Their cemetery, where they're buried at, is just right to the west of us, and so we just kind of named it after them. It was clearly marked, and what we actually ended up doing was putting a new fence around the cemetery and actually gave them more land for the cemetery just so everybody can know that, that's an official cemetery, and this basically to not do any type of construction on it. We need to get in contact with somebody out there to come over here and look at the cemetery and actually get somebody to kind of clean it up. And some of the tombstones have actually been damaged, and it'd be nice to actually, if Creek Nation actually put some signs as far as the history of the people over here, and basically just get it cleaned up. Just because the people come over here to walk the boardwalk trail and don't understand the history in this area and why we named it Casita Bottoms Boardwalk Trail. And it was after the Native Americans that lived here in the villages to the north of here. And some of those ancestors are buried in the cemetery over here, and the cemetery really needs to be cleaned up and brought back to where it used to be.
Well, that's going to wrap up another episode of Native News Today. We certainly hope that you enjoyed watching us this week here on Tulsa CW 1219. But if you are out of our viewing area, I always like to remind you folks, I'm going to hit you at the closer every week to go to our social media sites, go to our online channel. Right now, in fact, lots of great material on MvskokeMedia.com, lots of big news happening around the Mvskoke Creek Nation. So we want you to go on there, make sure that you're up to speed on all the latest things. We're a once a week show here on Native News Today. We love producing Native News Today for you folks, but the truth is, if you're just watching Native News Today, you're going to have to wait till Saturday to get your information. If you're going to MvskokeMedia.com, if you're going to all of our social media sites, you're going to get it as we publish it, which is daily. New content on there daily. We're producing and we're uploading things as news happens. And it's happening fast here at Mvskoke Creek Nation as we get into the holiday season. Lots of big things that you want to stay up to speed on. So visit MvskokeMedia.com, all of our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. You can find Mvskoke Media on all of them. And it's a time of year where we'll be doing some giveaways, reaching out with our citizens, doing different holiday promotions, things like that, as well as Mvskoke Media adopting some angels from the angel tree this year as well. So we're really excited about this time of year. Lots of news happening, lots of things going on, and we hope that you will come along with us and be a part of that journey as we just continue to give you all the information that you need regarding the great Mvskoke Creek Nation. So like I said, next week we'll have some stories that you're going to want to check out. Definitely get to a TV, get to the internet, and be watching Native News Today. For Jared Moore, I'm Jason Salzman, all the great people here at Native News Today. We'll see you guys next time.